Your wrists play an extremely important role in your golf swing. And your wrists have many different ways to be able to move the club in space. Today, we're going to be talking about the importance of understanding what vertical hinge is versus horizontal hinge, and understanding which one of those is good and understanding which one of those is bad. If you have this bad movement into your golf swing, then you're going to be forcing yourself to recover. But this is a movement that's built into your swing shape because of one reason and one reason only. Because it's easy for you to feel the shallowness of the swing shape. Shallowness is going to come from your body turning. And in the modern day golf swing, we don't just use a shallow sort of swing shape. We use a shallow movement and a steepening movement. And your arms play a vital role in that process as well. But your wrists can really set the tone here if you don't give the inputs the right way early on in the swing shape. If you're creating horizontal movement in the golf swing from your arms or your wrists, then pay close attention to today's video because we're going to help you fix it once and for all. So do me a big favor before we start out with today's drill, and I know that you probably got a chance to watch some golf instructional outlet before you started watching my golf instruction, give us both a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to post it up below. Always do me a big favor, because it helps us grow and helps us continue to spread our message all over the golfing world, is subscribe to the channel. Head down below, hit that bell notification button, and that way you get notified anytime we put out new content. Now, you ready to get to work? Of course you are, let's get to work. If you think about that hammering a nail into the wall analogy, you start out by taking that nail and just trying to get it started into the wall. You don't really move your arm a lot, you just take your wrist and you just kind of tap it a little bit. And then once you get it started, then you start making some bigger movements. Now, if you were to make those bigger movements and you started adding in any sort of extension or flexion, or you added in some supination or pronation, then what are the chances that you're going to be able to hit that nail on the head? Not very high. Probably not very good, right? So you can understand that it's very important when it comes to swinging the golf club, a game that requires a lot of precision, that you give the trail wrist, which is most likely your dominant side of the body, the correct function. So I think of the wrist set in the golf swing as the vertical hinge. And what a vertical hinge really looks like is that if I were to stand here with my golf club at parallel to the ground, and I were just to pick it straight up and down, that would be a vertical hinge. From that same position, if I were to get the club to swing back and forth without moving my arm, that would be a horizontal hinge. And a lot of you at home try to create that movement because it feels right. It feels like how you're going to eliminate the over-the-top swing when it's, in fact, compounding on the problem. So that's what this drill is designed to help you do. This drill is designed to help you take a lot of the technical thinking, but I want you to start getting comfortable with feeling that right wrist kind of pulling the club head up to the sky. Now, I know there's lots of videos that talk about wrist set. We talk about pulling or pushing the club in a certain direction with a certain part of your lead hand. I don't like pushing the club at all. I like to think about pulling, because in the trail side of the body, if you pull, you can start to keep things very centered and you can keep things very consistent. If you push it, you can start to push your head and your shoulder line down. You can start moving things in a way that's very hard for you to be able to get it in the same spot every single time. So the way that we're going to do this drill here today is we're going to be thinking about it with always getting good body turn to be the initiator of the golf swing. And we're going to be doing that with some mild or passive wrist set early on in the swing shape. And then we're going to couple that back with some very robust wrist movement up to the top of the swing. Now, when I say robust, I don't want you to whip it back like you're trying to go into full set. But I want you to think about your wrist being kind of like at 80% of its max range of motion. Again, it's hypothetical. So if my wrist didn't have any sort of set to it, and then this was 50%, and then this was 100%, kind of find it like that middle point. I want you to feel like you're pulling the club head up to that middle point as you work from your takeaway up to the top of the backswing. Now, the way that I want you to set up the drill, Jason, let's go ahead and take our setup here. And I'm going to put a golf ball down where your normal position would be. Okay. So we have a line that's coming straight back off of our toes, and we have a line that's coming back off of our ankle joint. Now, these lines are to help you with your takeaway and your backswing. In the takeaway, when we start to shift and turn our body, our hands should be more or less coming straight back on your toe line. And if you keep the club head out in front of this line, then what you just did was you actually started to passively elevate your arms. If he didn't elevate his arms, his hands would be way inside. And he also started to set the club with his wrists. By keeping the club out in front of the body and getting the hands on top of the toe line, you now have started the whole sequence on a much better tone. You have momentum and inertia working in your favor. But this is only half the puzzle. If he were to take that right wrist and start to hinge it really early, okay, where that horizontal hinge, then the club would get in behind his hands, and his hands would more or less try to pop out away from his body, and then that's when things get all hell breaks loose, right? But now what we need to do from this position is we need to finish it off. So from that passive set position, what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna try to feel like we're pulling the club up to about 80% of our range of motion, just like Jace is demonstrating, and we're gonna couple that back with our body turn. So I want you to go into your takeaway position just like Jace was demonstrating, and I want you just to kind of get comfortable feeling the wrist function kind of independent, okay? And then I want you to start coupling that back with good body turn and feeling those hands move up above the right shoulder. Now when you do this, the depth line back here is your reference point from your perspective when you're looking down at the golf ball to keep your hands, your arms, and the club head out in front of, which a lot of you at home are like, no way, that's gonna be way too steep. Of course it will be. The club should work slightly back in behind the depth line. But from your perspective, you're trying to keep everything out in front. If you do that, you've now eliminated horizontal movement from the arms and horizontal movement from the wrists that gets you into trouble in the first place. So how we're gonna practice it now in step number 2, once you've kind of learned the 2 pieces here. So let's go ahead and take away and demonstrate this again real quick. Okay, so the hands should be tracing back on the toe line. You're supporting the club. Then you're kind of feeling the wrist pull the club head up to 80%. Then you're finishing off the backswing. That's step number 1. Get comfortable with that, back check it on camera, do somewhere in the ballpark of like 25 sets of that, just like he demonstrated there. Now in step number 2, what you want to be able to do is go from a static address position up to the top of the swing without freezing. And you want to feel as you're starting to move through the takeaway that you're giving it that sort of 80% pull of the club up as you're finishing your turn. And you want to do another 25 to 50 reps up to the top of the swing. Now, as part of step 2, what I like to do is, because you're now training your proprioception, your brain and your body how to move in a different way, is I don't like to just go up to a static position and stop. I like to do what, Jace?
I like to do a little weight shift with that.
I like to do a little weight shift and swing through, right? I like to get you to start swinging down from that position. Because why? Well, because the golf swing is a movement pattern where you start in a static address position and you move to a finish position. That's point A to point B. What happens in between point A and point B is what we're working on right now. And these movements are important for you to be able to get your arms in the right spot. So let's go ahead and show them now as part of step 2. Once they get really proficient with it, you're gonna go up to the top. So feel that wrist pull up to 80% as you finish off your turn, shift and swing through. Okay, good. Again, try not to pump on this next one, just go up to the top, hold it static for me. Okay, good. Now shift and swing through. Okay, I try to eliminate any sort of pumping in these drills because, again, we're trying to get from point A to point B. Up to the top, swing through. So a little brief pause like that gives your brain enough time to kind of catch up with things to make sure that you feel like you're in the right spot. Once you go and do another handful of reps like this, then go back, check it on camera. See if it looks exactly like we've been demonstrating here. If it does, then what you could do is now start your practice session with trying to hit some golf balls with this. But when you do this movement, because some of you have been using a lot of that horizontal movement in the golf swing with your arms swinging across your chest or your wrists doing all of this added extracurricular activity, give yourself a little bit of grace because it's going to change the complexity of your downswing pretty quickly. And that's when you need to start looking at the rest of the pieces of the puzzle. And if you find that you're struggling, but you're in a better spot, then come find us. We can help you and start coaching you on the next part of the process that's going to help you get the club from the top of the swing down through delivery with some compression and some control so you can look up and see your golf ball flying down the fairway. So remember, step 1, learn how to turn your body to move your arms and support the club. Step number 2, or step number 1, I should say, after that, is to start to feel your wrists kind of move the club to 80%, and then finish that off with some good body turn, holding the hands and the arms and the club out in front of the depth line. And then in step number 2, you're trying to blend it all together up to the top, getting into a good spot, and then swinging down. Once you get to that point where you can do it proficiently, then you can start your practice session trying to hit golf balls. And I would suggest like 1 practice rep, 1 golf ball rep, or 2 practice reps, 1 golf ball rep. Get rid of the horizontal natured movement in your golf swing from your arms and your wrists, and you're gonna be a much happier camper. We'll see you guys in the next video.